You are listening to the CAD Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CAD Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CAD Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your host with the dulcet tones and charming demeanor, and with me, as always, is my partner,
Rocco. And there's nothing charming about this man, folks. Nothing.
See? You see how mean he is
Ask
to me?
his wife.
And that's why I make him suffer through the engineering joke of the week. All right, here's your punishment, Rocco. You ready for this one?
Ready.
Why did the civil engineer cross the road?
Why?
So we could design a better one on the other side, of course.
Oh, God.
Yes, they get worse every week, folks. I'm sorry.
That was
because
really
Rocco's
bad.
mean to me. All right. All right, everybody. So we have one of our favorite guests on the show today, Ramesh Sridharan, the director of AEC Building and Infrastructure Design from Autodesk, is here again. Hey, Ramesh, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, Jim. Hey, Rocco.
Hey, Ramesh.
But here's the important thing. Ramesh did not come alone this time. He brought a first-time victim, maybe I should say guest, to our show. Michael Davidson, who is the product manager for BIM and CAD Integrations at ESRI, is also here. Hey, Michael, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller here.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm absolutely amazed that anybody actually listens to the show. Ramesh was very clear in the beginning. He's like, I don't listen to your show. I just show up and talk. So at least we got somebody to listen to us. All right. So, gentlemen, seriously, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today. We truly do appreciate it. So I tell you what, before we get into today's topic, all right, which we are calling Autodesk and ESRI, perfect together. But before we get into that, let's learn a little bit more about our guests. So Ramesh, as the veteran here, we'll let you kick it off, right? So can you tell folks about your background and what you get up to over there at Autodesk?
Absolutely. I think I mentioned multiple times about me. Let me see if I can say it differently this time. I'm kind of an existing conditions guy. My whole background was about collecting existing conditions for design or modeling or something. And that's where I really fortunate to work with the reality capture side. I dabbled with a lot of GIS data. So now in Autodesk, I get opportunity to do both. And I'm leading the reality solutions team at Autodesk, and also leading the product management for Autodesk and ESRI relationship as well. So that's where I come from.
There you go. All right, so Michael, what can you tell folks about what you do over at ESRI and how'd you end up over there?
Yeah, happy to go into that. So I'm actually coming at this from an academic background. I had a research faculty position in civil engineering for just under a decade. I taught classes and structures and worked on research projects and wrote journal papers, but part of my job, I also led a small team in developing bridge software for structural deep foundation analysis. And as part of that over time, I was really lucky to get involved from a pseudo vendor aspect as part of this massive BIM for bridges project. It spanned across like 20 states. It was back in maybe 2019 when that started. But as part of that, also there was a parallel effort, maybe about 2020, I got involved in developing geostatistics software. And so through that BIM for bridges, through that geostatistics effort, I started to really fall in love with interoperability of BIM and analysis tools and GIS. And I always found out of the things I did for that academic job that figuring out from customers what the software team really needs to be working on next was really the thing I enjoyed the most. So in early 2023, it took a leap out of academia, became a product manager for those CAD BIM integrations at ESRI. And what I do now is I sit in the middle of our customers and developers and the business units and try to distill down the pain points from trying to bring together Revit and Civil 3D and AutoCAD with GIS and package it up in a way so that the dev team can know what to take on next and why that's going to make those customers happy and our business folks happy, and at the same time try to lift up and work together and synergize with Ramesh and Autodesk. So there you go. There's my life story.
Nice. See, so as you can see, folks, we got some guests on here with some serious street creds. Unlike knuckleheads like Rocco and I, who just sit and talk on the on the podcast. But at least we get someone here who knows what they're talking about, which is a huge plus. All right, so what we want to talk about today is honestly what I think of as one of the most successful business partnerships in the design world in the last decade. And that has been the cooperation that we've seen between ESRI and Autodesk, right? And the powerful compatibility of their tools and processes. And let's be honest. I remember back in the days when you guys were competitors, and now that you're working nicely together, it has actually been a godsend to those of us in the infrastructure space. And to my mind, at least, it's really a great guidepost to the whole tech industry and something that everybody should be doing. I think instead of constantly fighting for customers and trying to poach customers and outsell each other and beat each other down, these two companies work together. And they have substantially increased the user base for both firms through solid cooperation, right? What we learned on Sesame Street as kids, play nicely together. So Michael, I tell you what, why don't you give folks a little bit of background on ESRI's role in the AEC space?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so. So, and whether you're coming from AEC or transportation or utilities or another industry, something we see and that everybody knows is your projects get divided up into phases, and it's not neat and tidy. It's really messy. You have earlier phases like design, or later activities you're trying to do project handover. It's not something that's completed in isolation and has a real clear starting and end point. There's overlap, and maybe certain project phases will totally encompass some activities. And what we see from the ESRI side is it creates a need for all these different types of professionals, the engineer, the CAD team, the GIS team, the field team, the project managers, and on. They get this need to share and access and to transact on all these different types of project information, terrain and LiDAR and CAD drawings and Revit models. But it becomes really daunting for any one of those project roles to grab from that mountain of evolving information just a little bit and piece that they need in their tool so that they can move forward in their day. And so what we try to do with ESRI and ArcGIS is we try to work to incorporate location into all those files and all those web services associated with all that mountain of project information, try to integrate it into just a source of spatial data so that the promise there is it can remain a little bit more organized and centralized and available for all those different project stakeholders to draw upon those little subsets, to collaborate on and transact on, and help those project phases unfold a little bit more smoothly. So that's some of the promise that we offer there.
Yeah, and I got to say, I think everybody agree. You guys are doing a pretty good job at that with the amount of data that you guys deal with, and how easy it is to structure it and work with it. Props to ESRI on that. So, all right. So Ramesh, let's bring you in here, right? I mean, you oversee the infrastructure and the reality capture divisions over at Autodesk. What do you see as the key functions that, the GIS data, how does it benefit people who are working in your spaces the most?
Absolutely. So, the traditional way of people referring to GIS, right? People always kind of said, get it surveyed. But that's not the case anymore, especially from the civil engineer's perspective. In this case, we're talking infrastructure, right? Infrastructure users' perspective, people should and also started seeing how valuable the GIS data is. It carries a lot of information as the layers, especially the large area ones. Exactly like what Michael was talking about, cities and counties, even countries. They carry a lot of those data in a large scale. How to leverage that into that design and modeling is one of the keys. It's no longer nice to have, it's immediate need for many of the design projects. As I mentioned before, existing conditions is vital. I believe one of the presentation I was giving before, I mentioned this, that wherever you are, you always need to know where you are going, right? So that is very important. But to go where you are going, you need to know where you are at that time. So having the existing conditions, know where exactly you are in the project, what do you have right now with you, helps a lot on where you need to go. And that's exactly what GIS data brings into any workflow, especially in this case, the infrastructure, the reality capture workflows as well. So that's a very key aspect. So in that aspect, GIS data can, will, and should work hand in hand, maintaining the latest existing conditions with the reality capture. Reality capture is another way of collecting the existing conditions. The way I always see it is one gives a 3D visual way with the images and point cloud. The another carries the completely other end of the spectrum with the metadata and attributes and values and more. Both by itself is great, but having it combined and use it for the infrastructure or the buildings or any AECO projects will be phenomenal. And that's exactly what we're working on.
Yeah, I agree. And I can't, I agree with that 100%. I'm an old man and I've been doing this for a very long time, long enough that I kind of pre-exist before the GIS data came into play. And I cannot tell you how many times you need to start because, in the old days, you couldn't get that existing conditions data and you'd start designs just on the fly, like, well, we'll get it going. And when we finally get all of the existing condition data, we'll fix it. And, you're 6 months into a design and all of a sudden you realize that the gravity mains are on the opposite side of the building than what you were designing for. And, oh man, I tell you what, GIS is just, like you said, it's absolutely priceless in the modern design world. You can't work without it. All right, so kind of getting back to our main topic, I guess, the most important aspect to any true partnership is that the benefits kind of have to flow in both directions, right? In other words, right, Autodesk needs to benefit from ESRI processes and features, but ESRI also needs to benefit from the Autodesk tools, right? Which means that, all of the CAD and BIM features, that they're noted for need to add value back to the GIS world. So Michael, how do you see, your ESRI GIS users benefiting from the Autodesk CAD BIM data?
Yeah, absolutely. So for that one, and given that one thought, it really came to that we see three big bucket workflow patterns for the GIS user when they're trying to work with that CAD BIM data. One would be where they're just trying to build up a visualization for their project sites and have that context. A second one would be where they're actually doing some spatial analysis and they're trying to operate on a wide variety of project information that's brought together into one map or one 3D scene, for example. And then a third pattern we see is actually those GIS users needing to publish out the maps or the scenes that they're creating so that the other project stakeholders, say like in a web browser or in a more specialized tool, Civil 3D or AutoCAD, can have that context and enrich their decisions that they're making. So we see those three patterns that are very common for the GIS user, and underpinning every one of those patterns is that need for the GIS user to have that CAD and that BIM content that they can weave into the context of those maps and scenes. And that is really needed. That CAD and BIM information is needed so that the GIS user is able to perform those analyses, for example. What encroachments will a project have on the parcels, the property lines, or are we encroaching, or what impact are we having on environmentally protected areas, for example. But it's not just the GIS users that benefit. We have these GIS teams kind of setting up these other project stakeholders to benefit as well, like the project manager maybe wanting to know just issue status or see a dashboard, throughout a construction phase just in a web browser, or a designer, as to what Ramesh was talking about, just helping facilitate designers needing to pull down, say, existing utilities into the Civil 3D drawings. So there's a lot of benefits for the GIS user, and those include underpinning and kind of setting up those other stakeholders to benefit as well.
Nice. All right, so Ramesh, I'm going to kind of flip that same question back at you, right? What do you see as the most important aspect of, the Autodesk ESRI partnership from your end?
Absolutely. When Michael introduced himself, he gave a good introduction. He kind of made it clear that he's much smarter than all three of us. And now he goes first. He kind of stole all my answers. I need to come with the different answers now. Okay, so most important aspect. Definitely. I think one of the aspects Michael already fantastically covered, the connections and the accessibility for GIS and the engineers to use as an existing condition is vital. The one thing that excites me on the important aspect of Autodesk ESRI partnership is the potential that's ahead of us as well. For example, I think we talked in one of the podcasts before. I'll bring it up again in the detail. the ESRI base map. So some of the base maps integration we have, you can see it as RGB image or the street maps or things like that. But imagine you have potential to look at that as the image of a geotechnical information or a soil information or something. Imagine how a site designer or civil engineer can work knowing what's underneath with that image that gives them like an X-ray vision to see, and they can design much better. Simplified, very valuable information in a very simplistic format that can handle the engineers to take care of the stuff, make them better design, make the better model. That possibility really impressed me a lot. And everything we're working on and we're talking today is definitely the great stuff compared to what it was. And the direction we are going is very important to us. I think Michael and I talked multiple times. Everything we talked about today used to be a important possibility a few years ago, which we accomplished it now. Now the next level, what are the things we can actually do? That really excites me. That's the most important aspect as well for me.
Nice. All right. So Rocco, let's wake you up over there. Now that we've gotten deep into the civil stuff and you're all confuzzled. So yeah, Liz, do you talk with a lot of users who are using the tools from both Autodesk and ESRI? And how important is integrating both of those systems together to our client base?
Yeah, I'm talking to more and more folks for sure, and it's exciting to see the partnership. We've all been around long enough to see environments where products are not talking to one another and who's blaming who, and create a case and go in circles and just not get resolution. So to have such a tight integration between ESRI and Autodesk is huge, and it's very exciting for customers.
Nice. All right, folks, I tell you what, we're going to get a break in here so we can listen to today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to talk to Ramesh and Michael about kind of the specific products and processes that their firms have integrated and the benefits that they feel they bring to listeners. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hey everybody, this is Jim and Rocco with Zentech Consultants, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the training options that we have available here for you guys at Zentech Consultants. We offer public training classes as well as private custom courses for all of your software and design needs. So, Rocco, why don't you tell the folks what kind of training we offer and how do they reach out to us to get it going for them?
Yeah, Jim, we cover everything from Bluebeam to Autodesk to Microsoft to BricsCAD to civil site design training and beginner through to advanced level topics. Like you said, both public and private courses. If you got a group and want to run a class specifically for your team, we can help you. So just feel free to hit our website. We're at zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK, or you can give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go, Zentech Consultants for all of your technology training need. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking with Ramesh Sridharan of Autodesk and Michael Davidson of ESRI today about the partnership of those two infrastructure giants. And in this half of the show, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the products and the tools that our listeners really should be using and what these two gentlemen see as the biggest benefits of each of those. So, Michael, let's start with you. What are the biggest tools and products that have come from the Autodesk ESRI partnership so far?
Yeah, the tools that are out there so far, and this is a little bit more on the ESRI side. There, plenty on both sides that are really exciting, that are ongoing and that kind of thing. But it kind of goes back to those themes I was talking about earlier of just serving all these different project roles. So if we're talking about the GIS team, then a big part of that would be the flagship desktop software, ArcGIS Pro, and that's going to allow the GIS analysts, for example, to federate together all these different types of CAD and BIM data sets, Civil 3D and AutoCAD and Revit, for example, as GIS features, and then use them along with all that other project data so that they can do their analysis and their visualization, their sharing out, and underpin and set up and tee up all those other project stakeholders, as we talked about a little bit earlier, maybe even the public at times. And ArcGIS Pro does a lot more than just CAD BIM, actually. We're just one part of several mini teams that are working on that product. There's also ArcGIS GeoBIM, and that's geared for project managers, asset managers, and it lets them have just an easy to use web interface where they can have this kind of rich, immersive 3D scene, but behind the scenes, it's linked to cloud environments like Autodesk Construction Cloud. And so you end up with this nice little, easy web browser experience where you can zoom in and interrogate and select on any facility, a building or a bridge or an Autodesk Construction Cloud issue of interest, for example. And you can pull up on the right half of your browser that Autodesk model, that Autodesk Revit model through the Autodesk Platform Services viewer in the right half of your browser. So without any translation or anything like that, you're kind of getting a view into both worlds, both the GIS and that design world. So the idea there is that these project managers, asset managers have that right bit of information at their fingertips, and they can stay focused on putting out fires, during their weekly and daily stand-ups, rather than spending all their time hunting around and finding the right information that's going to set them up for those weekly and daily stand-up meetings. Now, last but not, go ahead.
I was going to say, you're talking about fires? You're thinking that jobs don't go beautifully well all the time?
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Exactly. So if it's going smooth, that's a different story. Last but not least is the designers and the CAD teams. There are multiple ways for them to get that better understanding of where and how the assets that they're working on, they're designing fit within their environment, within their tools, and there's built-in capabilities. Autodesk has the Autodesk connector for ArcGIS and Civil 3D and InfraWorks, and ESRI, we also have this plugin. It's called ArcGIS for AutoCAD. Sits on top of AutoCAD and Civil 3D and Map 3D.
Nice. All right, so that's a great segue into bringing Ramesh back up here. So, right, so I know you have mentioned this before on previous shows here, Ramesh, and Michael was just saying it, right, about bringing that GIS data into Civil 3D, right, kind of going in the other direction, and in particular, right, you mentioned that there's a connector and there's ArcGIS for Autodesk. Can you kind of explain what is the difference between those? Because even I struggle with that difference a little bit.
Absolutely. See, first of all, when we talked about the ESRI Autodesk partnership, right? The core thing is making the data flow between I don't want to call it the silos, between the workflows, between the personas as smooth and easy as possible. There are several different ways you can do it and several different layers to this, but at the end of the day, we are making that whole process easy so that the GIS folks can get their job done easier. The same thing with the engineers and modelers in Autodesk side. So when you talk about tools and features in multiple products, there will be some overlap. And because you're talking about bringing the layers, we call it as a feature layers or raster layers, or in Civil 3D, you call it different way. So you will have those overlaps, and you will have those tools in a different products for a different use cases and handling and personas as well. So that is unavoidable. And also, as a matter of fact, some users won't even like it. If you just have this tool for this, then you jump for this tool for this, then you jump for this tool for this, it looks like very compartmentalized. So what I'm trying to say is the key is to identify the fundamental, the persona, fundamental differences. And here the main thing we are trying to address between Autodesk and ESRI is the persona is a key fundamental difference. For example, both the tools, AFA is ArcGIS for AutoCAD, and the connector is available for all the users. Users can use the way they want to, but the fundamental thing is ArcGIS for AutoCAD is for the, like for example, I think Michael and I talked about it multiple times, is for like a GIS persona in the AutoCAD and Civil 3D. You want to do some CAD stuff with the GIS data. You want it to come in a way you are used to it. Like for example, the latest AFA has the, what is it, Michael? You can actually take a, not a backup, it's like the database functionality. I forgot the term exactly.
No problem. Yes. So yeah, we really lean into, I would say from a designer's perspective with ArcGIS for AutoCAD, those more intensive GIS concepts, and try to keep them behind the scenes. So the collaborative editing through branch versioning, for example. So we support branch version GIS layers. Yeah, pick it back up.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, the things like that where the GIS users are very familiar with, and it's obviously essential for those workflows. And of course, the CAD users can also use those things. So that's the persona we are trying to make happy with the AFA tool, for example. And the connector for ArcGIS is one of those engineer persona available being in AutoCAD or the Civil 3D or Map3D or InfraWorks in this case, who needs those GIS data in a way as simple as possible, consumable, so that they can continue with their engineering stuff and the design aspects of it. So that's why if you look at the tools, like for example, if you take the latest connector for ArcGIS, we have a settings, and when the data comes in, as an organization, you can set it up in such a way, this layer with this query needs to come in this point group with this stylization, and you can go very detailed aspect of how exactly it should be represented in Civil 3D. As a matter of fact, you can even do the property mapping, any attributes in GIS, which property it should be associated with, so that when you change something, when you update something, both sides updated in an equal manner. So those kind of customizations you can do make the civil engineer's life significantly simple by using the GIS data, making it almost seamless on leveraging the GIS data in their workflows. I would say there are multiple things you can mention. Fundamentally, that's the two big differences. Does it make sense, Jim?
No, it does. And I will give you guys some serious credit here, right? In the early days, when you're first, starting out, right, it wasn't always simple to understand how to bring the ESRI data in and to get it translated into a format that most CAD and engineering design people would understand. And that's come just an incredible distance, and it is so easy now. Like I said, particularly you set up the templates and you bring data in, and things are coming in with the right properties, the right layers. They're not polygons, they're polylines, and things like that. You guys just done a wonderful job with that over the last few years. So I think that kind of brings me to my next point, which is in general, I feel that this partnership has been working out really well for the end users, right? All our Zentek clients here, and I'm hoping that it will continue into the long term. Like I said, looking at what you guys have done to integrate these systems over the last few years, and the tools that we have available in the current release of both systems, it's really impressive, right? But I do want to put our guests here on the spot today, and see, all right, if we get them to break some safe harbor rules, and get a little bit of a sneak peek into the future of the Autodesk ESRI partnership. All right, Ramesh, what do you think are the most important functions that this partnership has generated to date? And can you kind of give us any announcements, I guess, on what you guys are kind of working on for the future?
Absolutely. So we talked about the connectors, connect for Civil 3D and Map 3D and InfraWorks that we talked about it. The one thing I mentioned before is the ESRI base map integration. See, I told you I'll bring it back up.
There you go. You never lie.
Exactly, yeah. That was very fantastic tool. It's released earlier this year and available in AutoCAD and its derivatives. User can get the latest and greatest ESRI images in the backdrop of, like I said, AutoCAD derivatives. That's also already there. It's not a new announcement, but maybe for those who don't know, listening to this podcast, this might help. There are a lot more activities going on in Autodesk. Like, for example, many of you guys know the water portfolio, like InfoWater and InfoWorks and things like that, have the family of water products have much tighter integration with ESRI as well, so that the leveraging GIS data coming to the water design also. Some of the folks who attended the Autodesk University recently might know the pharma as the plugin for the ESRI base maps integration. I think the Tandem is planning to have ESRI base map integration. So those kind of stuff makes it a little bit more bringing us together on a different product level. Michael already mentioned the BIM and GIS collaboration piece. That actually is a fantastic way of bringing the ACC cloud, Autodesk Construction Cloud, and the ESRI cloud together from the project manager portfolio as well. So these are all the different tools and stuff. Some tools probably who've already heard, and some are kind of a new announcement that's happened and happening. But you can see that even when I'm talking this, we talked about the connector piece and then the product, then we're talking about base maps. You can start seeing the progression we are going towards, like how from the desktop, like a tools to tool or product to product side, to kind of a cloud-based stuff, which is what I mentioned as a BIM and GIS collaboration, and even further as a platform level integrations we are aiming it to. Like Basemaps is one fantastic example of the platform level. There are more can be done and will be done. It's kind of like a coordinate system, so the data should come in together. That is some work we are discussing about reality capture workflows, how to leverage both the both the products and both the clouds to leverage that part. So there are a lot more discussions are going on the some fundamental integration on the platform level as well. Maybe that's the time. That's the one for another podcast.
There you go. Yes, good stuff. All right, so Michael, kind of along the same line, right? But from the ESRI side, where do you guys see this partnership going? Rather, I mean, is there anything that your user base, I guess, is really hoping to get access to from Autodesk in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to echo some of the things that Ramesh had pointed out, it is really exciting to see it start to maybe become less of an aspiration and more of a reality, to maybe start to shift away from these file-based workflows towards service-based workflows. And there's some directions with the base maps. There were some big announcements back at Autodesk University, for example, with some integrations into Forma. From the ESRI side of things, we are really strong in consuming these CAD BIM data sets and federating them together with all this other project information, so you can get these scenes and even digital twins and that kind of thing, and underpin all those other roles as we've talked about. And we've also talked about today some of those tools that we have to bring GIS over to the design teams and get the project and asset managers exposed to GIS. But one of the many things we're looking forward to in 2025 is actually ways to increase that data flow back toward those engineers, say, working in Civil 3D. Do a better job of bringing the spatial analysis tool chest from ArcGIS to their fingertips, perhaps. And for us to increase the flow in that direction, what it really comes back to is something I was saying at the beginning, is that importance of location and making it easier and easier to get consistent location information into those CAD BIM authoring workflows as early on as possible. So very long-winded way, let me come back to your question there about what our user base is hoping for. We're hoping to make these integrations better and better at instilling and caring for that location information, so that our GIS teams that are working this ArcGIS software, they don't have to play detective when they're federating together all this project information, and instead they can go right into their visualization, their analysis, and their sharing workflows.
Nice. I will say, though, it is fun to play detective. I got my little Sherlock Holmes hat. You can have a little fun with that.
Yeah.
All right. So Rocco, let's kind of look at some of this, I guess, from our client side. Is there any particular area of focus that our clients seem most interested in with regard to the kind of the infrastructure GIS marriage of these two companies?
I think it's really the development of where things are going, right? And that, coupled with the integration of the different software packages, right? Because we're not just talking about integration with Civil 3D here. It's Revit, it's AutoCAD, it's InfraWorks, like Ramesh was saying. So I think just seeing where things are going is what folks are super excited about, and hopefully we'll get a lot of folks to listen in on this podcast.
There you go. All right, folks. So as always, when we have a guest on, I like to give them the last word to tell us about something that I didn't think to ask them. And this time, since we have two guests, I'm going to drop one question, and then I'm just going to let them both fight it out to see who's going to answer and what they're going to say. So what about it, gentlemen? What else should our listeners know about the Autodesk ESRI partnership and interactions?
You want us to talk at the same time? So you get
Actually, talk over each other, confuse everybody. That's always more fun.
You're the seasoned veteran, Ramesh. I'll give you the last word. So I'll go first, if that makes sense. All right. So something, for this one, I was thinking, Ramesh and I are together at conferences throughout the year, and it is really encouraging to hear from our joint customers that they see that the partnership is real and it's working, and that motivates me, just for my part, for us to keep marching forward, for Mesh and I to keep teaming up and keep working together and having that synergy. But what I would also say here is just for listeners to please reach out. We have ESRI community spaces, for example, for you to share technical questions, for you to have ideas for enhancements and improvements, so we can do a better job. We want to hear those pain points, and we're active in those spaces, not just from the product management side, but product engineers as well. So lay those pain points on us. We're trying to do as best as we can and a better and better job of bringing that CAD and BIM information into those tools like ArcGIS Pro, but also, getting that information back out so that it's adding value to those engineering workflows.
Nice. All right, Ramesh, you're not going to get off without giving some answer.
No, man, I'm just thinking exactly what you guys are thinking. I should have gone first.
This is what happens when you let the guy who's like this brilliant academic just take over the whole thing.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
super smart. All right. So for the listeners, yeah, definitely. Actually, you know what? The way I would say it is, kind of Mike touched on this. I would pose one of the questions you asked. What is the future thing Autodesk is working on? That's one question you asked. You asked me. I would kind of pose in a slightly different way to the fantastic listeners and users. What would they try to get out of this partnership? Now they heard that we're working on the connectors or the GeoBIMs or the base maps and all those things. And what would they try to get out of this? Because the way I see it is, this is one of the, I know this term is not used in the partnership, but it's one of the unicorn partnerships that has some endless possibilities. Both are big companies, both have a lot of credentials, both have a lot of potential to do it. And putting them together, there are various different ways you can actually do this part. We are uncovering we kind of thought the connector part of is what is the topmost things customer want. We are addressing one after the other. But still, I always feel like we are mining this and mining this. There is a diamond somewhere, bigger diamond. And we already found a lot of them. Bigger diamond somewhere, we can do it. That is something we can actually work closely with the users also. We work with a lot of users, don't get me wrong. Like exactly Michael said, there is forums and ideas, same thing in Autodesk side too. But the many decisions we make are from the users we already work with. But given the grand scale of user base, you're talking about between Autodesk and ESRI, there's a potential to hear more. I mean, we obviously don't want the full decision to be made or skewed by a small set of voters, the users, don't you? So things like that can happen. So that tremendous power from the users, and that's what actually maybe I'll pose the question back to the listeners and say, bring us something, what we can do. What is the real pain point you have? You might think it as a small pain point, but many of the users like you might be facing that too. Think beyond the tools and features. Obviously, think about tools and features too. Give us a feedback. We'll definitely fix that for you as well. But beyond the tools and features and what this partnership can build something fantastic for the industry. That's something I really pose that question to the users to think about, the listeners think about. I really encourage them to reach out to us and provide the ideas and to grow in that direction.
Nice. However, it is very important here to remember, Ramesh, since you're on my show, when the users come back and they answer your question and you go digging and you uncover the Hope Diamond and you make billions of dollars, I need a finder's fee, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Sign the NDA first.
There you go. Yeah, I like it. All right, folks. With that, we are going to bounce out of here today, but I do want to thank Ramesh and Michael once more for being here to answer all of our questions. It has been an absolute pleasure having both of you guys on. Thank you so much for taking the time today, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
And hopefully, Michael, we didn't frighten you off. Hopefully, you'll continue to listen and come back on the show.
Ready for the next one. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So with that, we'll let them all get back to the day, and we'll catch you all next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.